News Center Maine is partnering with the Maine Monitor to bring you some of the reporting being done by journalists at that nonprofit independent publication. We'll be featuring one of their stories each Monday. Today, we're talking about environmental research. Over the last 6 months, the Trump administration canceled or paused millions of dollars of funding that was supposed to go towards environmental research in Maine. Here to talk about the uncertainties caused by this is Emmett Gardner, an environmental reporter at the Maine Monitor. Thanks for coming in. Good to see you, Emmett.
Yeah, good to see you too.
All right, let's start with this. Which groups have seen grants that have been either paused or cut?
Sure. So in addition to the dozens of other communities and institutions that have had federal funding cut by the Trump administration over the past 6 months, I've been zeroing in on two of the largest environmental research institutions in the state, and that's the broader University of Maine system, and then the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, which is a nonprofit based out of Portland.
How much money are we talking about with these cuts or pauses?
Sure. So specifically for the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, which often collaborates with UMaine, they've had about $4 million in federal funding either paused or terminated over the past 6 months. And then meanwhile at the University of Maine, they've seen about $1.5 million for research on PFAS get rescinded and then returned. But more specifically, I've been focusing on this separate grant for renewable energy research in rural and Wabanaki communities, roughly $1.1 million grant that was canceled, returned, and then canceled once more, where it is right now.
So what kind of impact has there been as a result of these changes?
Sure. So I think more than anything, it's been the tumultuous nature of them that's caused ripples across their respective institutions. For the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, there have been pauses, and then that funding has been restored, and they're working on a lot of long-term research projects on climate change. They have one initiative that is working with local fishermen to get them involved with the process for developing offshore wind. And when those funding sources are paused or canceled, it just kind of disrupts the data gathering process, which researchers say could have a longer term impact on the overall accuracy of the data.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the grants are on and then they're off, and that creates uncertainty. Mm-hmm. How are these researchers and organizations sort of navigating that uncertainty?
Sure. So the Gulf of Maine Research Institute has been working with their other grants that they have filed and trying to get those along, working with the respective agencies to get that federal funding down the line. But they've also been leaning in more towards their foundation grants, grants from individual donors, non-federal sources. Roughly 40 to 50% of their funding comes from federal grants, so it's a big ask, but they feel confident with their financial positioning that they'll be able to rebound. And then at the University of Maine, for this specific grant on energy research, researchers have still been able to kind of do the work that they've been set out to do, and working with the communities that have been a part of this enterprise. They're spread pretty thin, so it's not like they're having the same amount of interactions or meetings as they were when the grant was in full effect, but at the moment they're making do.
All right, we gotta let that be the last word. Emmett Gardner from the Maine Monitor, thanks for being here, Emmett. We appreciate it. And of course, you can read the full story and much more at themainemonitor.org. For now, I'm Rob Caldwell, News Center Maine.